Hello, everybody. What's up? And welcome into the Athletic Fantasy Football Podcast here on a Monday. It's what, August 9th, August 8th? It's August 9th. Monday, August 9th is the date here. Michael Beller, Brandon Funston, and Jake Seeley here with you. We've got another fun draft coming your way today. And speaking of fun drafts, Flex Weekend just concluded. Both Jake and Brandon were out in New York. I was sadly not in New York. I will be participating in one of the online drafts about a week from now. But how was the weekend, guys? Jake, was it another successful Flex Weekend? Back in person?
Yeah, it definitely was. It was great just to see everybody again, including Funston. It was great to see everybody. It was great times. I am tweeting about it this morning. Just the best part might be when Funston knows this, when I got back from trying to run everything to the hotel room, and Eric Young, professional wrestler who has once choked out an Olympic gold medalist with a prosthetic leg of a war hero, to let you know how psycho this person is, told me I walked so fast to our hotel and back that I might be the most insane person he's ever met. For the fact that he said that to me, but it was great. Like, everybody was having a good old time, except for Nando when he stole Jamie, Ganos, and Esther away from us to go buy baseball cards and never return on Sunday or Saturday.
True story. But Jake put on a first-class operation. I got to give you credit, Jake. Everything kind of seemed to go off without a hitch. Everybody showed up. Everybody had a great time. It was a really good kind of social event for the fantasy industry, which, probably a lot of people were, finally relieved to be able to kind of get out and talk to some of their colleagues that they see online, but don't get to talk to nearly enough. So, yeah, everything went really good. The venue was great, and I need a vacation day from my weekend in New York, but here we are. We're gonna draft some running backs instead.
We are going to draft some running backs instead. That's a weekend well-lived right there, Funston. How you guys feel about your teams? We're going to talk about the teams in depth. We're going to talk about the drafts later this week, but how you feeling about the teams you came out of the weekend with?
I feel 9 out of 10 good. We'll talk about it on Thursday. There was 2 or 3 decisions that came down to it's good for strategy. That'll be the tease for Thursday. It's kind of like strategy involvement that made me kind of go certain ways that, looking back, I've been like, if I would have went this, but you can't. It's hindsight. It's a snake draft. It's an auction. I feel like I would have been a little bit better, but we didn't have time for an auction this year, unfortunately.
And my tease is I did not pick a wide receiver in the first 6 rounds.
You cannot. That's no. That's not good enough, because John Daigle didn't take his first non-wide receiver until round 9.
Yeah, no. John Daigle takes the cake for trying the cry for attention draft.
Oh, 100%. I told him I could just put him on the air if he wanted. I could just got him the spot.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Oh, man. Well, we'll dig into all those flex drafts later this week. And maybe you guys can help me get ready for mine, which, as I said, is next week. But that is not the draft that we're going to be talking about here today. Of course, it's a Monday on the Athletic Fantasy Football Podcast. It's a Monday, everywhere right now in most of the world. But on the Athletic Fantasy Football Podcast on Mondays, what we do is come up with some sort of niche draft, some sort of draft with a catch. And today what we're going to be doing is getting into the running back dead zone. Obviously, you've probably heard about this by now. We've heard about all the scary stories about what happens when you're drafting running backs to between the 3rd and the 6th round. Some really good research done by Jack Miller over at Establish the Run, showing that these backs do have a below expectation win rate, especially when you compare them with the wide receivers who are being selected alongside them. Just to give you an example of who's at the top of this group: Clyde Edwards-Helaire, J.K. Dobbins, David Montgomery, Josh Jacobs. On the wide receiver side, Keenan Allen, Terry McLaurin, Allen Robinson, CeeDee Lamb, Mike Evans. So we're talking about those guys at the top. And then the back end of at least the top 6 rounds includes Raheem Mostert, Ronald Jones, Javonte Williams at wide receiver, Odell Beckham, Brandon Ayuk, Jamar Chase. Guys like that. There are success stories, though, guys. There are success stories. Let's just rewind 1 year. David Montgomery was the RB4. He came from this group. Jonathan Taylor was the RB6. He came from this group. Chris Carson, forever underappreciated. He gave you a high-end RB2 season as a low-end RB2 draft pick. In 2019, Aaron Jones was the RB2. He was in this group. Mark Ingram, the RB8. He was part of the dead zone. Josh Jacobs was RB14 by points per game, also comfortably in the dead zone. So we know there are going to be running backs that people are very happy to have on their team. We also know there are going to be some of the biggest busts, and not just value busts, just straight up busts in this range as well. So what we're going to do here on this episode with our running back dead zone draft is help you find that ceiling and avoid that bust. So far, you guys with me? I'll explain the scoring after this, but so far, you guys are on the same page with what we're doing with this dead zone, yes?
Yes and no. I didn't see the randomizer, and I want to know how I still haven't had the first pick in one of these drafts yet.
Oh, okay. Well, I will tell you how that comes. First, we're going to get to the scoring. So how are we going to prioritize upside and also penalize busts and make you maybe say, maybe I would rather take Michael Carter, who's being an 8th round pick by ADP, over someone who's a 4th round pick by ADP to show off illustrate the value that we could find in this range. Well, here's how we're going to do it. At the end of the year, we are going to take the ADP of every running back that we take here and subtract his finish from it. And that's the points that this person is going to win you. So using J.K. Dobbins as the example, J.K. Dobbins is the RB15 by ADP. If Jake drafts J.K. Dobbins, we know Jake loves J.K. Dobbins, and J.K. Dobbins finishes as the RB10, Jake gets 5 points. If J.K. Dobbins finishes as the RB25, Dobbins loses Jake 10 points. And that's how we're going to score this. We're also going to give some bonuses. If someone finishes in the top 5 at the running back position, a 20-point bonus. A top 10 finish gets you a 10-point bonus. A top 20 finish by someone out, or a top 40 finish, by someone inside the top 20 by ADP, that's going to be an extra 5 points loss. Anyone finishes outside the top 50, an additional 10-point loss. So that is how we're going to score this. We're not going to look at fantasy points. We're going to really try to find the guys who can exceed ADP and stay away from the guys who are going to be those 2020 Todd Gurley style of fantasy football busts, the ones that could really sink a team. Jake, you know what? I will. So we did the randomizer the first few times, and it just kept giving us the same stuff. So I just put in order. But if you want, Brandon, are you cool with just giving Jake the first pick in this?
No, I'm fine.
No.
I don't mind. I actually don't mind the turn. I just wanted to make a mockery of the fact that I haven't ended up with, but I'm fine taking the turn. I know who Brandon's going first. That's all I'm saying.
I couldn't remember. I just knew that I haven't had the middle pick, and he is
going with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. He's going with the 11th running back. With the first.
So let me show everyone.
No.
Let's add this. So here's
shaking his head. No.
Here's what we're looking at. Here. These are the players that are available to be selected. They're color-coded by round because the ADP data is a little off the chart. So they're color-coded by round, with red being 3rd round ADPs, blue 4th, green 5th, purple 6th, orange 7th, and yellow 8th. And that's the list of guys that we're looking at, from Clyde Edwards-Helaire at the top to Michael Carter at the bottom. Funston, get us going here. Who's the first pick in our running back dead zone draft?
Yeah, I just got to get the biggest return on investment, Jake. So I understand it's not the Deontay Foreman signing that's going to shy me away from Mike Davis. It's the fact he's in the middle of this group, and I think Michael Carter, who's at the very bottom, what is that, like RB 35 or 34 on the overall list?
35, yep.
If he just finishes mid-teens, and we all believe he's the 1A in that group and has a huge catch upside. If he just finishes in the RB2 range, that's a huge return on investment in this game. So give me Michael Carter.
All right, then I do want the first pick.
All right, so we'll take Michael Carter from here to here. Now, there's obviously the big bonuses for coming in the top 5 or the top 10, and that's what's going to maybe incentivize going after Clyde Edwards-Helaire, J.K. Dobbins, or David Montgomery. But Michael Carter, we've talked about him quite a bit. Funston, you think that there's no huge concern with what Tevin Coleman presents in this Jets running back situation?
No, just like there was no huge concern on his last, in his last gig in the last couple of years. Mm-hmm. I just think Michael Carter, first of all, I'm just a believer in the talent, but he'll bring something unique to the passing game, which I think will be important to this team. And I think he's underrated as a 3-down back, as his ability. He's not going to get the 20 carries, but I think he can handle the 15 touches, where maybe he's getting 12 carries a game and 3 to 4 catches per game. And I think that's kind of his wheelhouse, and I think he'll do a lot with that.
Jake, this was someone who you wanted first?
Oh, I thought I was going to get him on the turn, honestly. I was hoping to. You know how I feel about Michael Carter. I said so much about him. I feel like I'm just repeating everybody's gonna be like, shut up, Jake, enough. Go back to it. It's just here's the easy. I'll give you the 1-sentence version. Actually, not even 1 sentence. How many words is it? It's 4 words. He is Austin Eckler.
Oh, he is Austin Eckler.
He's not gonna finish top 10, but who he is as a running back and his skill set, he doesn't need to touch the ball 20 times a game. So there's a hell of a lot more words involved. But I felt like I've said that a million times already.
I want to say that in 2019 that Austin Eckler was had like an 8th round ADP when it was clear that he was going to eat into Melvin Gordon's workload more than ever. I think he had an 8th round ADP right at the end of the summer, and that was the year that he was put himself on the map in a big way in the fantasy world, helped a lot of people win games while Melvin Gordon was missing time at the beginning of the season. So Michael Carter gets us started in our RB dead zone draft. I am very tempted. I know it's like maybe the square play to go with one of the guys at the top of this because of the return can only be so much, right? J.K. Dobbins, even if he's the RB1, is only going to get you those 14 points plus the bonus. So there's a little bit of a square play involved when you're looking at Dobbins, Montgomery, CEH. I am tempted to go with them, but I'm going to go with the other guy who Funston referenced for my first overall pick, and that is Mike Davis. Not at all concerned with the Deontay Foreman addition. Mike Davis, I think easily everything we've talked about with Mike Davis already shows you what we all think of him, going to control that Atlanta backfield. And importantly, I just don't see a ton of a bust risk for him at where he is being selected. If you're talking about him being a 5th round pick, you're looking at wide receivers in that range who aren't necessarily going to be guys who put you over the hump in a way that who you're taking alongside J.K. Dobbins, who you're taking alongside David Montgomery could be these superstar players. So I think that Mike Davis is someone who you can easily fall back to as your RB2, as your RB1 if you go in a different direction at the top of the draft. Not my favorite direction to go in, but I could see where that ends up working out for you. And importantly, in our game here, I really don't see there being much bust risk attached to him with the role we expect him to inhabit in Atlanta. So I will take Mike Davis, the very sad Jake Seeley, up for 2 picks.
Well, it's really quick on
Mike
Davis.
We're doing 3rd round reversal, right?
Second round reversal.
We are
Jake.
not doing 3rd round reversal.
Did you not tell me about the 2nd round reversal, Mike? Jake, where do you have Mike Davis in terms of touches at running back? Like, is he top 10? Is he top 12? Close?
I don't know. You to prep me like you're going to ask a question. Then, like,
well, do you know what his volume is? Because you would think it's something close to that. I mean, I just want to say, like, volume typically tracks production. If you can be very inefficient and be a little bit off of that, but you're going to usually be somewhat close. And I mean that's the reason for Mike Davis here, right? Because you're probably going to
he is. I know off the top. I can tell you off the top of my head. I know him. I have him around 300 touches. So there you go for that.
Which is good. It's probably top 10.
Top 10 volume.
Yeah,
it's around there.
It's going to be really hard for him if he gets top 10 touches to not be at least top 20 and probably top 15 production. So you get bonus points. Nicely done, Beller.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Funston. I'm feeling good about myself. Jake, the 1-2 turn. Who are you looking at here?
Nobody. I told you I'm done. I don't want to do this draft anymore.
You could break into the 3rd round guys here. I mean, if you love J.K. Dobbins.
No. So I just want to clarify something. Like, which ADP are we using? So I know
we are using the Joe Public ADP. We're going to combine. I'm going to bring in some other sources. This is going to be end of season or end of draft season ADP. So right now is a pretty good guide, right? I mean, it's not like it's going to change too much.
So I mean, your both your ADPs
season
could be blown up at that point.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Shouldn't they already be? What's going to change about Michael Carter and Mike Davis?
That's what I'm saying. I mean, things aren't going to change that much.
Between now and the end of the month, they'll be higher.
I mean, how out on these guys though?
How much could change? How much could change?
I think Mike Davis will be 4th round. No, I think Mike Davis will be 4th round, and I think that Carter.
Oh yeah, we're not.
Yeah,
okay. Yeah. We're not we're not at the betting window here. We're not locking in our odds now. These are end of draft season.
Well, because that's what I was gonna say. That's actually
kind of a little bit of a bait and switch there, though, Beller. I mean, like.
Oh, you knew this. I told you before. Go look at Slack. I told you before.
End of 8. Did you? Well, I didn't. You took too long to respond. I never checked back. So.
End of draft season ADPs. It's still good. It's still going to be good. They're not going to change that much.
I would be, like I said, I would place a bet that Michael.
Okay, well you can't do the end of draft season like the last week snapshot. It's got to be like a summer.
No, not the last week snapshot. Okay. No, not the last week snapshot. Just where they are. We're using the.
They won't
Joe
change
Public
that
ADP
much based upon the weight of all the drafts that have already gone. But yeah, I mean, It is still a little bit problematic.
Yeah. It does change.
It's a huge problem. All right, Jake, who you got here at this
So,
turn?
so we're trying to predict where the drafts are going to have these guys going at the same. Like that, it's a lot of things to balance in there. So for my 2 picks, I will take one of the ones in the 3rd round ADP because that one. That's why I asked the question, is because those guys will probably move the least. I do think Michael Carter is going to go way from 8th. I would say 6th at the least at that point. So I'll take CEH. I bring it up time and again that before Le'Veon Bell came in, he was a fringe RB1, and everybody hated the fact that it's even with that, they just hated the fact that they pushed him up into the middle of the 1st round. That's why they were so ticked off, which should have never happened. But it's just you want to talk about a comparison. There's another Austin Eckler comparison. He doesn't need to and won't touch the ball 20 times a game, but CEH on 15 to 18 touches per game will be RB1. So I will take him. And for my 2nd pick, the one that I said from day one, then you guys will probably know as soon as I set this up, thought he would take over by week 6, and it could be a hell of a lot earlier with the other guy not showing up, finally showing up now, but definitely having his best season of his career, which wasn't even that much to say. But Javonte Williams, who I think is the better talent in that backfield. I'll go with an early and a late at the same mix because unlike Carter, I love Williams and Carter as much. Like I had them on the same tier during the NFL draft. I actually think Williams' ADP will rise less than Carter's will.
Yeah.
These are 2 guys who could end up by each other in real drafts come, 3 weeks from now when most people are going to be sitting down to draft. If you're faced with that decision on draft day, Brandon, you're a Michael Carter drafter, you've been a Javonte Williams fan, who would you take in just a straight up normal draft if those 2 guys are, 1 and 2 for you on your board?
Well, I would take Michael Carter right now just because I feel better about his opportunities in week 1, just hitting the ground running out the opening gates. Whereas Jake said, feels like it could be a week 6 thing, somewhere mid-season thing where there's a changing of guard, kind of maybe something like J.K. Dobbins last year where we saw, there's going to be a share, but maybe, Williams takes over down the stretch. So I think there's a little bit more certainty in what you're going to get early from Carter. But I think as far as just total upside, Javonte takes over completely in that backfield. I like him as a better fantasy player than Michael Carter.
Yeah. All right, here we go. 2nd round pick for me. Again, the important thing here, guys, a very important thing is to stay away from busts, and especially as it relates to us showing this off to our listeners, to our viewers on YouTube. So there are guys who I would take ahead of the person who I'm going to take, but I think that if I look up and down here, the guy who I think has the least bust risk, the guy who I would be very sure of hitting and almost for sure exceeding what his ADP is, it's Chris Carson. And so that's who I'm going to take here. I will readily admit that he does not have the largest ceiling on the board. I would, if I'm actually sitting down to draft, I'm taking David Montgomery over him. I'm taking J.K. Dobbins over him. But those guys, I think, have a little bit more risk attached to them. Chris Carson, there is basically no risk. I will feel no qualms about taking Chris Carson at ADP, feel very good about him on my fantasy teams this season. And that's what we're trying to do here. Stay away from that dead zone RB risk. Chris Carson, the only thing that has ever kept this dude down has been health. No matter what happens in Seattle, he is right at the heart of that offense alongside Russell Wilson. And so I just don't see why we don't have a little bit more respect for his year in and year out consistency. I'll go Chris Carson here very, very, very narrowly, I will say, over J.K. Dobbins.
So what's the risk for Montgomery and Dobbins? Like what's the risk between those two that's greater than the Carson health risk?
I think that for Dobbins is the presence of a big time running quarterback, right, in Lamar Jackson, and with what Gus Edwards brings to the table or takes off the table, as the case may be for J.K. Dobbins, and with David Montgomery, it's the presence of Damien Williams scares me enough that he's going to have a larger role in the Chicago backfield compared with what anyone in that Chicago backfield had last season. I mean, Ryan Nall was the backup running back for a stretch in Chicago last season. And so I just think that there is ADP risk, not real life risk, but I think there's ADP risk attached to David Montgomery where there isn't so much attached to Chris Carson.
Okay. I just needed you to explain it to me before I take both of them, because that's what I'm going to do.
No, you have to take somebody in orange, Brandon. Look at the colors. We need an orange guy. This is probably
Did we miss out on an orange guy? Oh.
You can go ahead and take one of them because I'll poo-poo on David Montgomery too, so go ahead.
Oh, you will, really. Well, give me J.K. Dobbins for sure. I mean, Baltimore lives in the red zone. He was a touchdown a week machine once he kind of took over. Feel good about him. And yeah, you know what? Just to be different and to pick one of my guys, a former University of Washington guy, is not so dissimilar to Mike Davis in that he's still standing as the guy there. A lot of PPR upside. There's going to be probably a Salvin Ahmed or somebody is going to play the Robin in this backfield, but I feel good about Myles Gaskin. Volume opportunity and a much better offense to be a top 20 running back.
Yeah, I've been ended up with a lot of Myles Gaskin in best ball drafts. I'm with you there. If you would have gone the J.K. and Montgomery route, I would have for sure just scooped up Gaskin and moved things along to Jake. But since you didn't, I will go with David Montgomery. And Jake, I'll just set you up. You can say what you want to say about David Montgomery. I'm going to almost certainly disagree with like 90% of it. But why do you think there is some bust risk attached to David Montgomery this season?
I think it's significant. Here's all you really need to know. Before the end of the season run, RB 23 overall, RB 28 in fantasy points per game. And he had that backfield to himself for most of that. And now Tariq Cohen, which, maybe Tariq Cohen's not even ready for week one. We've heard the news about Tariq Cohen still struggling to come back. But as Brandon mentioned, and you even mentioned as well, is Damien Williams. Damien Williams honestly might be a bigger factor taking away from Montgomery because unlike Cohen, he can run the ball between the tackles and more effectively in the fact that you don't give away where you're leaning. They're not going to pass every single time Cohen's in the backfield. They're not going to run every single time. But Damien Williams disguises it a little bit more because he can do both. So
wait a minute. David Montgomery caught like 50 passes last year.
What does that have to do with anything?
It's not a dead giveaway when David Montgomery's on the field.
I just said it wasn't a dead giveaway. If you're going to let me listen to what I'm saying before the point being,
I think you're saying that Tariq Cohen's never going to eat too much into David Montgomery because they don't want to use him as a runner a whole lot.
Yes, at least Funston was listening to what I was saying. That Damien, it's not Damien Williams versus David Montgomery. It's Damien Williams being a bigger factor than Tariq Cohen, and the fact that Tariq Cohen was already a factor in his own right. So 23 and 28 before that stretch run, where he's getting volume before that stretch run, facing bottom 5 defenses. Actually, he was facing, of those 5 games, the bottom 7 run defenses. Twice he faced one in the Packers, which is like second to worst or very last. And again, I don't hate David Montgomery. It's just David Montgomery as a fringe RB1. Hell no. David Montgomery as top 15. Hell no. David Montgomery as RB 20, 21. Sure, I'll buy in. But I think the floor is greater than what people are giving him, honestly.
I mean, David, what is he right now by ADP exactly? What an idiot. Closing the ADP tab. I'm gonna pull it back up. I will say that. Actually, Brandon, where are you on David Montgomery since you were about to take him before Jake sort of scared you away?
I am
RB 17 by ADP.
Yeah,
okay.
Too high.
I have him RB 18, so I'm not too far off. I still think that I go back to volume. He's got to be one of the best, a really strong bet for top 10 volume. And if that's the case,
I see. That's where I disagree, and that's why I was bringing up Damien Williams. I don't think the volume is going to be there.
Okay, I'm curious. I mean, I'm guessing your projections have a bigger role for Damien Williams than a lot of the projections out there. Like, are you like, what kind of a workload are you predicting for Damien Williams?
Go check the link. Stop asking me things that
I just assume that you have your projections right in front of you at all times, and
just like I got a giant poster board right behind the screen. You can't see, just like my projections.
So at the risk of being obvious here, I will say that the Bears' first 2 picks in this past year's draft should redound to Montgomery's benefit pretty strongly. The first one was Justin Fields. The second one, Tevin Jenkins, who's going to be starting at left tackle for this team. I mean, those should both be boons for David Montgomery compared with the quarterback play he had last season and the offensive line play he had last season.
Yeah, look, this boons not because he's also going to not get the volume. It's volume. Volume is king, and I don't think the volume is going to be there. That's the thing. If you gave me the same volume as last year, fine. Put him up there near the top 15. But I just don't think the volume is. Then that's the difference. If you believe in the volume from last year, go for it. I could be wrong. But if I'm right and the volume is going to be an issue, I'm taking Mike Davis. I'm taking Chris Carson, as you just were talking about earlier, and you did. I would take, I would even a regular draft. I would take Chris Carson over David Montgomery because while healthy, I trust Carson's volume more. And I'll take Swift, Edwards-Helaire. There's a lot, even with split backfields, that I would take because of the performance on it. It's just, it really comes down to what you believe. And that's why you can customize the projections for everybody out there. Look at that.
Yeah, go check out the customized projections.
What do we even know about Damien Williams at this point? He was a late career, had a rise in KC, and kind of, he looked great.
In KC.
He looked great there, but then he opts out. And like, you're in Chicago, Beller. What are you even hearing about Damien Williams? I'm hearing very little about Damien Williams.
And we get some good reports from our Bears beat writers, Kevin Fishbane and Adam Johns here at The Athletic, and that he's clearly going to have a role, but I don't think anyone's pushing David Montgomery out of a major role in the offense to the extent of, maybe not the 90% he had last year, but the 70 or 75% that we would expect from someone in his sort of role of a split backfield. And so I think that I feel pretty comfortable with where he is going to be.
So if you think my 265 touches, there's your answer, Brandon, is too low for David Montgomery, you boost it up and take the share away from Cohen and Williams and the rest of the backfield.
What do you have last year? Last year he was at 329 touches. No,
so about 60 fewer touches.
No. My math is horrible. 301 touches. 301 touches last year.
So about 35 to 40 fewer touches, which I think is beyond reasonable. When you talk about there was no Cohen and no Williams, you mentioned it was Ryan Nall.
It was indeed Ryan Nall who was backing
and
him
now
up
I have
there
our
for
projections
a little bit in
open, Brandon, so you can ask more questions.
Okay, but the question is, and this is a case, like, environment's huge, and does Justin Fields, if he is, Jimmy Graham's calling him, Russell Wilson, if he comes out and he's great and he raises the roof of this offense, then you would expect the quality of the touches to be better, and that more red zone touches and things like that. It's a pretty bad offensive team last year.
I don't think so. I think you're pushing the Fields on the offense onto, like, if you want to say more touchdowns per carry, but Justin Fields and their quarterback doesn't do much for me it's again because it's the share. I don't think the share changes. So if you want to say this team runs more plays, I mean, maybe that's an issue, but again, that has more to do with their defense than anything. I have them for 1,068 plays, which is a decent middle of the road number for most teams.
Yeah, I would say decent middle of the road is a fair expectation for where the Bears will be in terms of plays.
I don't think. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think decent middle of the road is sort of their ceiling.
I would sign up for it right now. I'm a Bears fan.
Is that not their new team? Like, I know Washington's looking for a new mascot. Is it not the Chicago decent middle of the road?
The Washington decent middle of the roads. That's pretty good. That's pretty good for where that team looks like it could be over the next couple of years. All right, let's get back to the draft here. Here's the draft board again. This is where we stand. Again, if you're joining us late, this is a running back dead zone draft. We are trying to find upside and also, just as importantly, stay away from the busts that we know loom somewhere on this list. Maybe it's someone that we've already taken in our first 8 picks. Maybe it's someone who is still sitting over on the right side available to be drafted. We know for sure that busts loom in this range. We're trying to avoid them. Jake, who do you think will help you avoid them at the turn here?
Yeah, there's only one fourth round, and I'm not touching Miles Sanders. You're talking about
that
bust.
is like
talk about bust potential.
Flashing light. Talk about a guy who I feel different about today than I did a week ago. My God.
Why was everybody kicking Boston Scott to the curb so fast? And now, like, we get this report, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, Boston Scott. Why were you trying to bury the guy to begin with? Because they drafted Kenneth Gainwell, who basically replicates Boston Scott. Chill out. It's more about Miles Sanders. Brandon and I were talking about that on the way to our first meetup on what was that, Friday with Nando? We were talking about the Miles Sanders situation and that you were cooling off a little bit more. You're coming more to my side. Not that you were super high on him to begin with. So I'm going to go with what Emery calls the flat brain thinking as one of my picks. Is the
thought it was smooth brain.
Smooth brain. Thank you. Smooth brain thinking.
Flat brain. It would be strange. You got holes in the brain signify intelligence. That's
right. So smooth brain. I mean, flat brain. I mean, like the flat Earth, or like that'd be the kind of the same thing. It could be the same. So, but it's talk about we love this guy as a backup potential, and then the lead goes down, and everybody's trying to figure out, well, is he going to worry about Xavier Jones, or are you going to worry about Calais? You're going to worry about them signing somebody off the no. Stop overthinking it. It's Darrell Henderson. So Darrell Henderson, if you're giving me a 5th round ADP, I'd be surprised if he doesn't creep into the 4th, but I think his floor is good outside of injury, obviously. But we talked about Carson before. Henderson gets hurt admittedly has a history of injuries. Admittedly, that's the floor. That's the concern. But if he doesn't get hurt, I don't see him finishing anything worse than 25th at running back at worst if he doesn't get hurt. So somebody who has top 15 upside, easily 25 floor outside of injury. So I know no matter who I take here, like who I want to take, they aren't making it back to me. So look, I know we're trying to say don't go for floor here, but I'm playing for first place. I don't want to finish second. I don't want to finish third. Yeah. So look, new coach, new team. They drafted him in the first round despite having a terrific running back. They tell me they want ETN, so I'm going to go with, imagine if what ETN did in college, he's doing in the NFL level under Urban Meyer. So I'm going for first here. I'm going Travis Etienne for the pure upside here, despite the fact if I'm in a draft, I'm taking DeAndre Swift, and I'm even taking Josh Jacobs with Kenyon Drake, and there's other running back. But I'm going for first here. I'm going for Travis Etienne.
I mean, I think that makes a ton of sense with what we're talking about. I think that's a great illustration of what we are talking about when we talk about the success stories in the running back dead zone, right? If someone is going to break out this entire list, throw the guys we've already drafted back in and just look at the list top to bottom. If one of those guys was going to be, if someone guaranteed you one of these guys is a top 5 back, ETN maybe wouldn't be your first pick, but he certainly would be among your first 3 or 4 picks for who breaks into the top 5. And so that's exactly what we're trying to illustrate with the way you can hunt for upside in this range, and that it's not just a stay away at all costs. It's a Bermuda Triangle. Things are terrifying that are happening there. I love the ETN pick here. I think that makes a lot of sense. And definitely, we know some guys are going to go undrafted in this group. We're only going through 6 rounds. And so ETN definitely someone who deserves to be on the board. It's my pick. I've talked about the fact a few times that if there's one thing that we can feel decent enough about Detroit's team, it's the offensive line. They've invested quite a bit in that offensive line, and it's a pretty good offensive line. It's the only thing they've invested in. It's pretty good. Like, I feel like they might be a little bit better than they're getting credit for, if only because, like, they should have time to do stuff offensively. It's not like Jared Goff is going to be under siege every time he drops back. And I think that coupled with DeAndre Swift getting at least 15 touches per game makes him a little bit safer than people are giving him credit for. I feel like, he started the summer high, or he started the summer relatively high. Things started to swing in one direction for him, and now we're seeing that come back a little bit. This is ADP creep back a little bit up. You see that reflected in the fact that he's still living in the 3rd round, and I think that's a fair spot for him. Most of the guys who are ahead of him in just straight up ADP charts, I would not take him over. But I think that once you get beyond those guys, that there's enough here. There's enough upside. There's enough floor in the amount of volume he should be getting, and there's enough competency on that front 5 for Detroit that makes me feel relatively good that even if he's not going to achieve the ceiling we know his talent gives him, there's still enough floor here that he avoids being one of those big bust risks in this range. So I'll take DeAndre Swift here.
Brandon? I was saying I don't mind it. Like,
I don't really have anything to say. It seems like a reasonable selection at this point. So I'm up for 2. Okay, so I will go with, I think, the 2 most or the least riskiest players left on the board, and I see some similarity. I'm going to take Josh Jacobs and Kareem Hunt, and I think Josh Jacobs is the Nick Chubb in the Raiders offense. Now, if you look at those offenses, very conservative. I think the Raiders backfield was just right on par with the Cleveland backfield last year in total touches. And I see Josh Jacobs as the Nick Chubb in that offense. I see Kenyon Drake coming in and being the Kareem Hunt. But one thing we know, Josh Jacobs last year was RB8, and he was one of the guys you referenced the year before as breaking through in that 3rd to 6th round. So he's kind of going the Chris Carson route where he's doing it year over year, but he's not really getting the respect at this point in terms of ADP. And then Kareem Hunt, we know he's kind of just been a solid second back to Nick Chubb in that offense, and it's yielded top 20 results. So, nothing's going to change there. And if Nick Chubb goes down, even though he didn't shine in the 4 games where Chubb was down last year, I think that's more just small sample size. I mean, we've seen Kareem Hunt be one of the best running backs in the league as a lead back. So if for something to happen to Chubb, I would love Kareem Hunt at this spot.
I certainly would have taken Kareem Hunt if you left him on the board there, Funston. You and I talked about him in last week's show that Jake missed flying to New York. So, Jake, I mean, he's RB23, RB24 by ADP, right in that range. Is that to you too high, too low, appropriate? How are you approaching Kareem Hunt at cost?
I think that's perfectly appropriate because I have him in RB23. So there you go. You know, to be honest about him, assuming he plays every single game, he's going to finish higher than that. But that's running back attrition. Other people getting hurt, other people losing jobs. Right. That's what happens. Yeah. That's a fair spot for what he brings, though, because he's the second half of a backfield. Nick Chubb misses a game or two. He's going to be top 10 running back those weeks. So that's really what it comes down to value. I was really shocked. He went RB30 in the first flex draft, and I was ticked off about it. Yeah, I was so mad about it.
I remember that.
But right. You know, I mean, he's gonna be like RB18, right? But he's not gonna be anything better than that. There's virtually no ceiling because of Chubb's presence.
And that's because you want him as your flex, because the 4 weeks are gonna be what kills you. And because a lot of people have been tweeting about this lately, which is, I don't know if it's a pro Chubb or a negative Hunt tweet. I don't know which way they're going with it, but that he only outpaced Chubb by 1 target per game. Well, I don't know which way they're trying to go with that, but you could kind of lean both ways with it. Is that Chubb caught more than, or had more targets than you thought, or Kareem Hunt didn't have as many as you might think? So whatever it might be, his floor is like you get 1 week where it's like 3 points. And I think that's why you want him as a flex running back. And this is a fine pick for me. Well, for him, but for me, in my opinion.
Yeah, he's more ideal in best ball, is what you're saying.
Oh boy, the ideal in best ball. That's the perfect time to kick you guys out of here for just a second as we approach the end of our draft here. You know, we still have a good chunk of summer left, right? It's August. We're into the second week of August. Feels like, oh no, summer's coming to an end. We still do have a pretty good chunk of the summer left, however. Our friends at Brooklinen want to help you out with that, because summer comfort, that goes way beyond t-shirts and shorts when you're outside. You want to be comfortable when you're sleeping too, right? And Brooklinen and their award-winning sheets are your answer for cool, comfortable nights. They got tons of options in terms of print and style, all that, tons of options in terms of what these sheets are made out of as well. They're famous for their luxe sateen and classic percale sheets, but they've got linen, they've got cashmere, they got everything that makes you feel, as I said, cool and comfortable while you are sleeping. And hey, bathrobes, towels, they've got you covered in the bathroom as well. Right now, you can go to brooklinen.com, use the promo code ATHLETIC to get $20 off a minimum purchase of $100. That's BROOKLINEN.com with the promo code ATHLETIC for $20 off a minimum purchase of $100. Again, brooklinen.com, promo code ATHLETIC. All right, guys, moving on to my 5th round pick here. And again, let's take a look at the draft board. I'll pull the draft board up so we can all see who's been selected, who remains. I'm taking Raheem Mostert, and a big Raheem Mostert guy on this show. I think you guys all know pretty well exactly what I think about him. Similar to what we just said about Kareem Hunt, he's not going to break through and be like the RB12. It's just not going to happen for him. Not the way this team is built, not the way that we expect Trey Sermon to be involved in the offense. But we also have seen a very good deal of Raheem Mostert over the last couple of seasons, and we know what this guy brings to the table, and I just don't see him regressing out of the offense in any significant way. So you're seeing him go anywhere between RB26, RB28, RB30, and I think that while that's fair, he really would have a tough time. I think it would basically take injury for him to not return that level of value, if not a little bit better than that. And I would still be taking him over Trey Sermon, even if they were an equal level in fantasy draft. So I feel very good about adding Raheem Mostert to this team. I really don't see a ton of risk attached here. Jake, you can weigh in on that before you make your next couple of picks.
Where is Trey Sermon?
That was going to be my 2-part question. Well, 2-part answer. I was going to say I was thinking Mostert, but then I was also going to say, where is Trey Sermon on the list? Because he's not.
Trey Sermon is RB37, which overall, really quick, makes him 97.3. The second back not included on our eligibles in this draft. The first back not included is Zach Moss.
Oh, what was the cutoff?
8th round, 96 ADP.
Oh, I would say that Trey Sermon before tomorrow might be needed to be.
He very well could get it there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think if the snapshot is like the last 3 weeks, I think we're drafting Trey Sermon, or he's
Well,
drafting.
Sermon.
This is what I'm talking. We need a better ADP picture. Someone out there needs to do it. Someone who's got the time needs to make a better, more usable, digestible ADP picture that only focuses on like the middle of July
calculator.
No, it's not good. It's not as good as I want it to be.
What do you mean? It does exactly what you said it wanted you to do. La, 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 la.
I know, but I want to bring in like I want to bring in all the sources from Yahoo and CBS and ESPN.
Okay, and does both. You can either go to one site and pick the range, or you can go to
I know and get a consensus. We need like a fantasy football clearinghouse. We need a fantasy football clearing. Well, we need like everyone like an industry advocacy group needs to do this for like the good of the industry, right? And like we all give up a little bit of our data for someone to have this clearinghouse set of data that we can use these base level things for. Someone
you already lost. You already. Oh, he froze. Look at that. He's so upset about it. He froze.
Yeah.
I'm here.
All right.
All right, Jake, why don't you put me out of my misery and just make your 5th and 6th round picks?
Well, I was going to check real quick just to give you. So Trey Sermon over the last month on Calculator. Yes, it's the only site on Calculator. He's RB 38. And
so that's surprising.
That's where he is in the composite Joe Public also.
He's the end of the 7th round.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, he's not available in this draft. Sorry.
So, also, I was going to mention before we kind of got on that sidebar is he actually went in front of, I know at least one of the drafts, if not both of the drafts on the flex weekend. Sermon went before Mostert.
I think that's crazy. I think that's crazy.
See, and this is the playing for upside situation is everybody's, what was Mostert?
Yeah, but I mean, Mostert's not going. I love Trey Sermon. I mean, I've watched him dominate plenty of Big Ten games, but I mean, as long as Mostert is there, like, come on.
Well, the argument for it is that Mostert's been kicked around teams and wasn't anything until Kyle Shanahan made him something. So if Kyle Shanahan is drafting a running back of Sermon's talent, imagine what he could do. I'm just telling you where the thought process comes from everybody drafting Trey Sermon. So that's really what it is.
I will admit that thought process is logical and makes sense.
Yeah,
I grant that.
All right. I was actually thinking about potentially just doubling down and hedging my bets with James Robinson and Travis Etienne. But, for what's left on the board here, one of the picks, again, will be for somebody who could take over the backfield in Damien Harris and give Belichick something he hasn't had in a while since going back in the days with, what's his face? Robert? Was it Robert? The one that busted his ankle and playing sand
Robert
football.
Edwards?
Robert
Edwards. Thank you. Lawrence Maroney days. It's been a long time.
That was Belichick's like 3rd year in New England when Robert Edwards
and
was
Maroney
there.
was after, so I was just saying it's been a long time.
Corey Dillon. Corey Dillon.
Corey Dillon was in between those two guys.
Okay.
Stephen
in
Ridley.
Any case, point remains. It's been a while since he's had a complete all-around running back and hasn't to go back to the giving things away. We know James White's out there primarily pass downs. We know the LeGarrette Blunts and Sony Michel's of the world primarily run game. So Damien Harris, I think, could easily, as long as Belichick is open to that, which he's shown to be open, it just hasn't had a guy like him to be a top 25 running back. So the other one comes down to, just timeshares across the board. So I poo-pooed him earlier, but if this is my last
none of us
pick,
want Myles Sanders.
I'll take Myles Sanders here as my final pick. Myles Sanders, even though I am one of the biggest haters of Myles Sanders weeks, and now everybody, as Brandon and I walked and talked about it, everybody's kind of coming around, but I'm not moving him further down because I already had him down in the 20s, but I'm not going to move him further down because I was already splitting this backfield. I still say, even if he only gets 50% of the touches, Scott gets 35, 40, and now we're up to, 80, 85, 90% of the touches, and now people sprinkle in. Point being, 50%, he's still not going to fall under the top 30 running backs. So at this point, Myles Sanders is pure value. And now, I almost got every single color. Almost. I was going to say I got every color, but I didn't. I missed out on orange.
So, I mean, how much risk is there attached to Myles Sanders, Brandon? I mean, when you look at where he is going, too many tabs. Let's see. Myles Sanders is not Jason Sanders. Myles Sanders he's right now ADP sandwiched in between Chris Carson and Allen Robinson. So just if we go straight by ADP rankings, taking Myles Sanders, getting you're not getting CeeDee Lamb, you're not getting Mike Evans, you're not getting Julio Jones, you're not getting Chris Godwin. And I think this is the illustration of exactly what people are talking about when they talk about the RB dead zone. the opportunity cost attached to these players at the wide receiver position.
Yeah, it's just, I always say that you're looking at volume, you're looking at environment, you're looking at talent. And I think right now you could argue that he has talent, and the environment is a question mark, and then the workload is a question mark, And I saw one ranking where they had Philadelphia ranked as the 30th best in terms of talent on the roster. This could be a really, really bad team. And the Jalen Hurts experiment, he could be fun for fantasy, but be awful for reality. And so there's that. And I think that's why if you're drafting in this range, there's no way I'm not taking CeeDee Lamb or someone you just brings a lot less question marks to the table. And that's why we're kind of poo-pooing on Miles Sanders. The guy's talented, and this could work out. An RPO system there,
why do you guys say poo-pooing on? Just poo-poo is to, dismiss.
No, because
poo-pooing on is a totally different thing that we're talking about.
You might be pooing the person, out of your body.
Well, we are crapping on him. So there
you go, but that's colloquial. That's colloquial.
We're trying to get Odell
fine.
Beckham to listen to the podcast. That's why. Fans of being poo-pooed on.
God. I'm going to leave this in the rear view. We are all in agreement and just straight drafts on Miles Sanders. I think we all would be taking those wide receivers ahead of him. We've got a couple of picks left here. I'm going to get Miles Sanders off the screen. But before we do that, we do have a message from our friends at Manscaped. Fantasy football season, that is back. We know that, and we're all focused on building the strongest roster possible. Don't want to forget about your full roster of body parts as well. Join the 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped and get ready for kickoff by going to manscaped.com for 20% off and free shipping by using the promo code AthleticFF. Check out the Performance Package 4.0, which includes the Lawnmower 4.0. This fourth-generation trimmer features a cutting-edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents thanks to Manscaped's advanced skin-safe technology. Sounds very fancy. It all just means you're not going to hurt yourself while you're doing this. The Lawnmower 4.0 has a 7,000 RPM motor, a multifunction on-off switch. It's waterproof. It's got a LED spotlight on it, so you can really see what you're doing. Basically, the best tool in the modern grooming game. The package comes with an ear and nose hair trimmer that's called the Weed Whacker, trademark Crop Preserver, and Crop Reviver, plus 2 free gifts, Performance Boxer Briefs, and the Shed Travel Bag. Again, that's 20% off and free shipping with the code AthleticFF at manscaped.com. 20% off and free shipping with the code AthleticFF at manscaped.com. All right, guys, let's do it. A couple more picks here to make, and then we've all got a call to join together. So let's wrap this show up here. Let me pull up the draft board really quick so we can see where things stand. We have 6 players left. James Robinson, Chase Edmonds, no thank you. Ronald Jones, Melvin Gordon, Leonard Fournette, and David Johnson. A pretty easy pick for me. I really haven't had any James Robinson in drafts thus far. I do think that there's a bit of risk attached to him because of the fact that they went after Travis Etienne, and we know that they want to get all of those all of those receivers involved in the offense with Laviska Shenault and Marvin Jones and DJ Chark. But I think that James Robinson's slide is going a little bit too far because this guy was RB7 last year. This guy did everything for Jacksonville last year. He was a great runner at the goal line. He was great for them in between the 20s. He was very effective as a receiver, and I don't think that you just turn away from that no matter what you have added to the offense. So James Robinson still has enough for role for me to like him in this spot. I want both you guys to weigh in on James Robinson before we get Brandon's final call. So, Jake, you take this first. James Robinson, you were on him last year. Our boy Emery Hunt was very much on him last year and turned us on to him early before he was even a waiver consideration. How concerned are you for him with the ETN addition?
Obviously, mildly, and I made the ETN pick in this draft, but the same thing to go back to the NFL draft. And what I think is why James Robinson is a great flex option, similar to Kareem Hunt, is that he's the better version of Latavius Murray, and ETN's the lesser version of Alvin Kamara. And why I bring those guys up, and a lot of people have made the same comparison since, but everybody wants Latavius in case something happens to Alvin Kamara. ETN's got a similar skill set, but ETN's not going to be Kamara because James Robinson's going to be more involved than Murray is. So you get the upside of a flex running back, similar to Kareem Hunt, in his hopeful 6 to 12 touches per week range. Probably going to be similar to the conversation we had before worried about the goal line touches for J.K. Dobbins and the Gus Edwards factors. He's going to be getting those touches versus ETN. So you've got a flex running back who is going much later because everybody's so scared about ETN. So I am with you. I have a lot of James Robinson. I don't have as much as I have fanmanship for James Robinson just because I've already drafted. Well, no, because I've already drafted.
I like fanmanship. It's a nice word.
Oh, I've been using that. Yeah, I tried to coin this. So this goes way back to when I was working at Geico over 15 years ago. Somebody tried to create a Wikipedia page that I invented the word fanmanship, and it got taken down after like a month. Wikipedia actually pulled something because they couldn't verify the source. But for James Robinson, if I was falling into this dead zone that you're speaking of and wide receiver heavy, I would. But because I am somebody who gets usually 2 running backs in the first 3 rounds, I haven't had to take them.
Every year there's a situation I just completely stay away from because I have no clue. We're always out here trying to tell everybody what we know and what we think and stuff. And I don't think I have an educated opinion on the Jacksonville Jaguars at all because there's so many variables at play with Urban Meyer, with Trevor Lawrence being a rookie quarterback and what's the style going to be? And I'll just be like, I'm not going to be an advocate for either one of these guys. This is going to be literally one of those situations where I'm at the seat on the field to kind of get a grasp of what their plan is. But right now, I can honestly say I don't know. And for that reason, I don't have any shares of either of these guys.
Yeah, I find myself in that situation in most spots as well. Obviously, the draft we're doing here changes things a bit. And Brandon, let me go ahead and finish off the draft we're doing here. The final pick in the RB Dead Zone draft, Chase Edmonds, Ronald Jones, Melvin Gordon, Leonard Fournette, and David Johnson. Let's be honest, you can't avoid bust risk with any of these 5 guys, so who has the least of it?
I think Chase Edmonds has the least of it because last year he had 150 touches. He finished RB 28. He had 53 catches, and that's with Kenyon Drake getting 10 rushing touchdowns and 265 touches. In my mind, I understand James Conner's being undervalued, and if he was on this list, he probably would have gone. But let's just say it's about 200. Let's say that it split it. It's 50-50, and it's about 200 touches apiece. Like I think there's Chase Edmonds because of his PPR upside. That's going to lift his value, and I think he's going to get – whether you think James Conner is going to come in and take over the Kenyon Drake role, I think it's going to be a lesser version of that at least, and Chase Edmonds is in line to see more than he saw last year. And last year was good enough for RB28. So if he moves up a little bit, suddenly we're talking back-end RB2, that's a win at this pick for me.
Chase Edmonds rounding things out for us in the RB Dead Zone draft. Let me pull that draft board up one more time so you can see it. Funston, Carter, Dobbins, Gaskin, Jacobs, Hunt, and Edmonds. I've got Mike Davis, Chris Carson, Montgomery, DeAndre Swift, Raheem Mostert, James Robinson, Jake, CEH, Javonte Williams, Darrell, Henderson, Travis Etienne, Damien Harris, and everybody's favorite Dead Zone pick, Myles Sanders. We'll track this all season long. As I said, guys, this is going to be a fun one. It's going to be a fun one to track because of the, I don't know if I want to say ingenious scoring system that I came up with, but I'm going to say ingenious whether I want to or not. I think it's going to make this a fun one to track here. We hope you guys enjoyed being here with us as well on the Athletic Fantasy Football Podcast. We have so much great stuff happening on the site right now with everything in the fantasy football world really coming to a head. Go check out everything Jake and Brandon are doing on the editorial side. Thank you for checking out everything we're doing on the audio side as well. You can go to theathletic.com/fantasyfootballpod to get yourself 33% off a subscription to The Athletic right now. Go do it. You are going to want that during the NFL season. For Brandon and Jake, I'm Michael Beller. The 3 of us are back with you on Thursday. The Athletic Fantasy Football Podcast returns on Wednesday with Nando DeFino, Chris Vaccaro, and Brandon Marianne Lee. We'll talk to you all soon.